participate in the meeting remotely. To participate in the meeting remotely, please follow the link provided on the agenda and enter webinar ID 886-7389-1095. This meeting and hearing will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make a plan for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. And now we'll take a roll call, starting with Lou.
Lou Franco.
Josie Gilchrist.
Carol Ashambo.
Jerry Reed.
Kim Duffy.
Debbie Lincoln.
Evan Waters. Tim Wilsmer.
Then we'll move to the Zoom attendance.
Aaron Menard.
Dick Mayu.
Thank you. Okay. Next we have an update from Over Under. Rami.
Good evening, everyone. Since we saw you last in early February, we have collated the feedback that we've received at the meeting. We've closed the survey. At the moment, we have 457 responses for survey 2. Well, I understand there are a few more coming our way. We'll add them into the tally. Overall, the needle hasn't moved from the responses that we received in and presented to you in February. And we're going to continue moving with that information. We plan to release the next survey in mid to late April in anticipation of the next public meeting, which will take place on May the 30th. Other than that, I would say there are still a few groups that we're trying to reach out to. Representatives from the Municipal Buildings Committee, we're still keen to speak with. Josie will help connect us with some of the farmers in Lunenburg and perhaps some adjacent towns. And one group that we've still not really heard very much from are renters. So if anyone has any ideas on how to reach that third group, we're very open to suggestions. And that's it for me now. I could go into detail on these, but I know we have a shortened meeting today, so I'll answer questions as they come up if that's all right.
Okay, and just so that we can put it into a perspective, you said we had 457 responses from survey number 2. For a town our size, is that good?
That's amazing, frankly. It's really good. We've never had numbers so high from town your size.
Well done, everybody.
You guys are doing a great job, truly.
Very good. And to everybody that may be watching that took the survey, thank you so much. This is really helping this phase of the process. Does anybody have any questions for Rami on that?
I do, actually.
Go ahead, Lou.
Good. What is the distribution across different constituencies relatively balanced, like young, seniors?
Yeah, it is fairly representative of the proportion, that we have given the latest census. The one place where I'd say we continue to be underrepresented is with renters, as opposed to homeowners. You'll remember at the end of the survey, there's a series of questions sort of asking about you, and for the most part, it scans fairly proportionally to what is in the town with that one exception, or low in the renters.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
Rami, and I'm not sure if the committee's decided if this has been a question before, will the surveys be reviewed prior to the rollout? Is that something that the committee's done previously?
No.
So-
Yeah, go ahead, Rami.
I think the next one in particular, I would really appreciate your feedback, so we'll plan to prepare that for at least a draft of it for the next meeting, which I'm presuming is in April. If for whatever reason we're off schedule, I can email it and receive feedback that way, if that's helpful.
From what I understand, Kim, in the past and when they first started with the surveys, it was kind of broad information, and they've been more honed down with each survey that's come out. So that makes sense that we would eventually start reviewing the information as it gets more precise.
Yeah, I think some of the feedback from the questions is that maybe they were a little too vague and it was left open to interpretation. So I'm not sure if we could use that as like a sounding board to see if we all have different interpretations of the same question to get more useful data.
I think one of the topics, and I don't remember who brought it up, was the question on open space. And we had talked, it was you, we talked a little bit about how we translated that one. And that was feedback that we offered that I think they're going to start clearing up in the future. So, yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
One more question about the next survey results. Will they be available to view before the town meeting or not quite ready yet?
Do you mean survey number 3 or survey?
Survey 3.
Okay.
Or is being put out before, but it won't be ready? I'm just trying to understand the timeline.
I mean, it depends on, frankly, how many responses we're getting, whether or not we think it should stay open a little longer. Well, let me backtrack. We can aim for that. And if we're not getting enough responses, then I think it's more useful to keep it open and try to get those responses rather than shut it so we can have it in advance of the meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Were we planning to present anything at the town meeting?
Oh, I'm
At
sorry. I completely misunderstood your question, Kim. I thought you meant the next public meeting.
Oh,
So there's 2 meetings that we're talking about here. The town meeting, which is I think May 14th,
May 4th.
May 4th.
Be there.
And then there's the Plan Lunenburg public meeting. And so at the town meeting, we're going to put a little feeler out there about the Plan Lunenburg meeting just for a broader audience. So just to clarify so that you can talk to Rami a little bit more about your question, Kim.
Are we planning to have surveys stacked up and ready to go at town meeting? I mean, this is setting up to be one of the most participated town meetings we've had in a while. I mean, you could easily get a couple hundred responses there.
And that's exactly what this committee is formed for, is to share with Rami our suggestions. So if we're anticipating a greater audience there, that's exactly the type of situation where we would keep the survey open a little longer, I would think. So Rami, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I apologize for the confusion. When we had talked about it earlier with Josie and Matt, we were thinking that the town meeting would be a great place to invite people to take the survey if they hadn't done something.
okay.
But given the space of time between the town meeting and the planning meeting, I think we should use that time to get more responses rather than show them what we have already, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Do we have a date yet for the next Plan Lunenburg meeting?
30th,
The 30th.
Mhm. Yeah.
May
May
30th.
30th? Okay, sorry, missed those dates.
Having said that, I'm open to suggestions if the committee feels.
So I think it was the last survey, so survey number 2, obviously, where we had gotten close to closing it, and then there was a major jump in the participants for the survey, which was awesome. So it's just, and I don't remember what exactly sparked that, other than this committee had a push and sent it out to contacts, and just that little bit of a push, sending it to our contacts and getting it in a lot of people's newsletters, like the newsletter from the school and whatnot, really boosted the attendance, or not the attendance, the participation in the survey. So it really matters what we put into it. And Kim, to answer your question, those moments are when we determine if it's the right time to close it. Yeah. Because he has, there's goals, Rami, and if you want to talk a little bit about the goals for each survey, as Kim's kind of new to this committee.
Sure.
Because I believe there was, I think it was also the last one where there was an underrepresented group and we waited a little bit longer to see if we could get more. I think it was the renting community, which we just never got. And there's just unsaid goals like that that maybe we need to amplify a little bit in this meeting so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, I think it's the more people we hear from, the better, the wider representation, the more the responses are reflective of your entire community, the better. But in each survey, the questions, as Josie said, you know, we start out very broadly and then we're sort of moving towards shaping goals, if you will, and then the next set of survey questions will really be about specific initiatives and engaging people's appetite for different initiatives. So though it's becoming, each time it's going to become a little more specific, so to speak.
Are there any other questions for Rami on that?
I'm not sure if it's for Rami, but are we allowed to approach the management at Arrive Lunenburg and Tri-Town and ask if we can just put a flyer in each one of the mailboxes?
Yes.
Or is that considered soliciting, technically?
Well, I don't know. I did it, so. Not to say that's right, if
Better
it
to ask
is, but
forgiveness than permission.
That's true.
that's exactly
But we
right.
did that and we still didn't
So
get it.
I didn't reach out to the manager. I reached out to a contact. I think Karen provided me with a contact of somebody that lives in those apartments, and she really said that there's it just kind of led to a dead end. So if anybody knows of a contact in management in those facilities, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we could
Because
always-
we want those people to be heard, and I don't think that they're going to mind us asking them to share their voice for this. I just don't have a contact, and I've
Or
been
we just
trying to
stop by
find.
the leasing office and pretend like you're looking. At least get you in the door.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would be helpful to, I mean, I rent, I filled out the survey, but I really don't know a whole lot of other people that do rent, and I don't know of anybody in that facility.
Mhm.
Any other questions on that?
What is it you're waiting to hear from with the Municipal Building Design Committee? Just out of curiosity.
Nothing specific, but I think Lou suggested that we reach out to them early on, and it's become clear to us that that's a good idea. That I think given, we want to understand the sort of history of this topic, more fully. We know that it's a key topic. We know that people have very strong opinions. So it just would be helpful to sort of better understand the trajectory, so to speak.
Okay.
What's been tried before, where there were roadblocks, et cetera, so we don't end up making recommendations that have already, you've already heard and rejected.
Going back to Evan's point about approaching management, do you have an answer for us on what's appropriate or acceptable?
Are you asking for a legal opinion?
A legal opinion.
I can't offer a legal opinion, but I would just be forthright about it and just ask who's ever in control over there and get the permission. I wouldn't beg for forgiveness later. I mean, I know it was a joke, but you don't want to be begging for forgiveness in zip ties from a holding cell.
They'll move you to Worcester County, though, if it's on.
So I would just take the approach of just being wide open about it. I don't see how they could reasonably reject that. That would just be my common sense approach, not a legal opinion.
Cool.
I mean, what are they going to do? Say no? That we shouldn't get the word out to the people that live here about what's going on in the town? I think that would be an unreasonable response. So.
Okay. Well, it coming from your mouth, I feel better about it, so.
Don't. That was not a legal opinion.
Not a legal opinion.
Nor was it a select board member's opinion. It was just my opinion.
It's just from the mouth of Lou Franco, a friend. Okay, do we have any other questions for Rami on survey? Okay. Let's move on to the upcoming plan phase shifts. And Rami, that's a question that I had for you. Is at the start, I think there were like 3 different stages of this overall process. And what is the clear deadline of when the data collecting shift takes place?
I will never reject data because we've sort of gone that phase. If there's new information that comes to light that shows.
Yes.
But I would say we are done with phase 1, which is sort of data collecting, and what I would call visioning. So understanding the values, the goals and priorities of the community, and we're now in the sort of recommendations phase at the very, very start of the recommendations, where we're going to compile a long list of possible policies and projects that could go into the plan. And from that list, over the next, really from now until the fall, get feedback about that list and sort of winnow it down to the list that we sort of agree should be in the final plan. So that we're sort of at the beginning of the second rather lengthy phase.
Okay.
And then just if the third and final phase will be sort of culling that, organizing it, understanding what can be done in the short term, medium term, long term, and then that becomes the report. Making the report into a sort of viewable PDF online, but also printable if people want to print it. But that's sort of the final document part.
Are there any questions on the phase that we're in? Okay.
I had a question about the plan and what goes into it. You mentioned there was going to be a long list of policies and projects that could go in. I was reviewing the 2002 master plan, great reading, by the way. They had in-depth plans of like geography, forecasting, climate, current town data, and utilized a lot of that other information for planning out 20 years. Are we going to be using any sort of that type of forecasting, for example, population growth, in any of these recommendations?
Yeah, and yes, the answer is yes. And there's sort of a little bit of that already in the existing conditions report, which we put out, I want to say in January. And that is sort of looking at sort of what has happened and with an eye to trends moving forward. And I think, identifying, particularly with respect to population and climate, making some forecasts about those. And it's a really good question. There are many ways to do this. We can come up with a single list of ways to move forward. You can also do it in a sort of if-then scenario where you're sort of looking at, if the population stays the same, these are the sorts of things you may want to consider, or any other kind of variables. So there's a way to sort of one or the other of those, and I think we can have that discussion further down the line. But the short answer, Kim, is yes. Forecasting should be part of what we're doing with that.
Thanks. Any other questions on that one? Okay. We're going to move on to the update on the event from February 1st. For that event, we had 2 separate meetings. The same meeting, just offered twice. Surprisingly, not as many people came to the later meeting. I think we had about 23 participants for the first. And I want to say like 13. I wish I had brought the log in. But does that sound right, Rami? Like 23 in the first and 13 on the second?
We counted a total of 35. So, in a sense, the total was about the same as what from our first meeting, or from the early meeting back in November.
It was very engaging, I thought. I saw a lot of new faces that weren't there at the first meeting that we had, which was good. Overall, I was happy with the participation. But Rami, do you have anything to say about that particular meeting or those meetings on February 1st?
No, I think they were great. We have some, we've taken the sort of responses that we got back from people that day from both sessions, and we're sort of using that. It's obviously less kind of data points, if you will, than the survey, but in some ways, folks who were there because they wanted to participate in a more active way. So getting feedback about the three exercises that we went through and the discussions that we had around those exercises were very useful. The first one was about values and asking people to sort of identify the different words they would use to identify Lunenburg. 6 values that should guide Lunenburg's future, and these are the ones that popped up were affordable, agricultural, rural, educational, safe. All of those received 10 or more circles from across the 2 groups. And then in terms of the goals exercise, which was the second one, the majority of people sort of responded positively to all the goals. However, 2 sort of stood out above the others. One was to improve open spaces and recreational opportunities, and the second one was to support and invest in the school system. And then the third one, which was sort of kind of brainstorming different ideas around the model. We had a large number of ideas, some of which we talked about at Great Plains, some were really, new initiatives, things like sandwich shop, development of mountain bike trails, the linear green, which was sort of proposed between from middle school, high school to the Boys and Girls Club. Well, there's a whole series. A place for large town events, access to pond, easier access to get to the beach, strong coffee, and more town events, more small businesses downtown, more sidewalks. So it was a real range of responses that I think, it's these sorts of things that we're going to start to add to over the next few months, and it's to create this sort of long list that I'm referring to. So I also thought it was a great set of meetings. I would be interested in hearing from you all where and how we should do the next one. Does it make sense to continue to have 2? Or should we have 1? Or is there another method that I do think the in-person, face-to-face nature of these is conducive to good conversations?
I kind of like the idea of incorporating the Plan Lunenburg meeting into more of an event. The end of May, the weather should be nice, and it would be kind of neat to find an outdoor venue where kids can play, so that doesn't hinder families from coming. And so, like, best case scenario, it would be a place where it would be family friendly. In the past, it hasn't been as much, and I think with that we should kind of pivot and accommodate young families a little more in that area. I have an outdoor venue in mind. I don't really think I want to say it out loud yet because I haven't spoken with them. But I want to hear your thoughts on trying to make that happen. To be able to set up a projector outside and have kind of have good audio and a place for kids as well. So, but we have until May 30th to make that happen and to collaborate on that. And I'm looking, if it's just a absolutely no, it can't happen, or no, it's a bad idea, those are things I need to know before I start making phone calls. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to say that's what the 300th committee is up against, a good open outdoor space to have crowds that's conducive to a good sound system, that's conducive to a flat area with good parking. This is what we are banging our heads up against right now. We don't have a good place in town that I can think of, or that the committee's been able to think of. So Rami, hopefully people are telling you that. I would love
Loud
to
and
see
clear.
that. I would love to see that.
There are privately
Anybody-
owned.
Anybody out there has a knows of a public place where we could do that, please tell us.
Didn't the select board bring up the property on West Street, the 64-ish acres for your bonfires?
Northfield Road.
Northfield?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
the other-
not, that's down the road. It's just completely undeveloped right now.
Got it, so it's bonfire property.
I have a thought for
Hopefully.
a meeting. It would not be,
5 years from now.
it would not be appropriate for what Debbie's talking about, but for a meeting where the town band plays in front of Passios, you could set up a sound system, you can set up a projector under that roof. The kids can play on the common area there in front of there.
It would be set up like the band.
It would be set
Yeah.
up the way, I mean, I wouldn't suggest the gazebo, that wouldn't work. But in front of the TC Passios building for a meeting, not at all for what, they're looking at for the
Yes.
350th. But that is a possibility. I do know that works as far as sound system and projector and kids running around.
Yeah. Is the committee on board with pivoting to an outdoor area and welcoming it to families and young kids?
Anything to
Is
get
that-
outside.
Huh?
Anything to get outside in the
Anything
spring.
to get outside?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You just have to have backup in case it pours.
Which would probably make the TC Passios, where the band concerts are held, an ideal location, because if it pours, you could pivot inside to the gym.
And then a question I would have is probably for Board of Health, and I'll do some research on it, but it would be neat to have like a food stand or something, little something else to offer. When we had it at Smokestack, I thought that was great. People had something to enjoy other than participating in the meeting. And people seemed to really enjoy that, and it just felt like an event rather than just a meeting. But I would like the same kind of idea, only outside and more accommodating to children and young families. So I will find,
Could you piggyback it off of another group in town doing a fundraiser? The Lions Club or somebody like that? And let them provide food, having a fundraiser for themselves?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. The question that I would ask is, how do we pick and how do we not cause problems with that? Because I know a lot of people would jump for that opportunity. So I
I'd
just
have
wanna-
more than one
Yeah. So
choices.
it would be neat. I mean, if we would open it up to more than one or whoever wanted to sponsor a table, that would be great. I just would have a hard time only allowing one, I think.
That may get into the select board then for licensing. Would they need to get permitting or anything?
Special special
So
event
that would be
permit.
more, yeah, that would be more on select board than Board of Health.
Certainly it would involve the select board. I don't know if it would also involve the Board of Health, but
Yeah.
We can ask
could be getting
both.
into that whole, facilities and how many people and all that, like we were talking, we had the,
Yes.
when we had the Economic Development Committee gathering.
Okay. So that's a
We had a
research.
question out here, I think, as well. I don't know if we're,
Where, do I have to go there?
I don't know, should we just, the-
I kind of feel like that has to wait until public comment,
Oh.
perhaps. I'm not sure.
it's entirely up to you.
Is it?
It is.
Yes, it
We're
is.
orchestrating the show, but it is usually at the end.
If it's fine, then yes, absolutely.
I'm Jen Duffy.
Your
An address.
And I live at 684 Flat Hill Road. I think that it's a great idea to do an event and things. I think it's great for awareness and everything. I think maybe for a meeting, for this coming meeting, it would be important to consider what the goals of the meeting are before we decide where you're going to have it, and if you're going to invite families, and what that looks like. Do we need to have somewhere to sit for people to sit? Because I know the last meeting, the presentation was quite long, and I would not be happy if I was standing for that entire time. So that was my first comment. So I think that that should be considered. What are we doing at this meeting? What are we coming to do? What are you looking to get out of it? My second comment is that people are pretty busy, and I think that people want to come and participate, but they want the meeting to be meaningful and concise and have purpose. So I know at the last meeting I was frankly bored out of my mind. I wanted to come and I wanted to participate, but I can't sit there for 2 hours and go over, things and not feel like there's progress being made or what the next steps are. So for me, I think that there needs to be communicated like a clear topic. What's the goal of the meeting? What's going to happen here for people to be engaged and want to come, and have that option to get your input put in and not have to stay for hours and things if like you want it to be an event and kids are playing and that. And so I think that's a great idea, and I think there's a place for it. I just don't know if it aligns with the goals of your next meeting with the public.
Thank you. Okay, for the sake of time, because we have about 10 minutes, I'm going to run through the last two agenda items, and then we're going to move on to committee and public comment, if that's okay with everybody else. So these are good research opportunities for whatever venue option we choose for May 30th. All right, so we're going to move on to the social media findings. Basically, that was just me. I put a post on surrounding town Facebook groups asking, if you moved to whichever town from Lunenburg, why did you move out of Lunenburg? And I got some very interesting responses. A lot of people said affordable housing. A lot of people said Unitil. That was very much like a lot of the answers that I got. At the same time, I wouldn't count that as hard truth, just because I don't know which, I just don't have as much information to make it conclusive. But I did think it was interesting how people were very willing to talk about it, and that's something that I would like to kind of challenge this committee in, is maybe start inviting people to come and participate in the public comment section of this meeting so that we can know who's talking, and give them the opportunity to speak to a broader range of people. Because I thought that was interesting how many responses I got and how many people were so willing to talk about it. And I'd like to open up the doors for more and maybe just start inviting people to come. So that's that. I'm going to move on to the next one. The location of the aerial town display, the map. I spoke with the library director per our conversation a couple meetings ago on where to house the aerial map that we have through the Plan Lunenburg process. He had a lot of if this, then that type of scenarios, that it is about 4 by 8, and that's a very large portion to take up if it's just sitting there. And that he asked if it could be multi-use. Could it be made into a table? Could it be incorporated into a table they already have? Could it be made weather resistant and maybe used outside? These are questions that I do plan to talk to Matt Brenner, the planning board chair, on to talk about the logistics of making that happen. So I wanted to make the committee and the public aware that we are trying to find a public spot for that map. Are there any quick questions on that? And that would be another ask potentially for the next meeting that we have, is if you have any ideas that come to you as you're thinking about where to have it, bring it to the next meeting so that we can discuss it more in depth. All right, and then I'm going to move on to committee comment. Does anybody have a comment?
I had just a topic. So I did, like I said, review the 2002 master plan, which was the last one. And I find it important to review that, what historically people wanted, what we still want, and things that we've achieved and things that we might have not prioritized. that we still find important. I created slides because that's just what I do. I don't know if there is a opportunity at some sort of public forum, this meeting or otherwise, to present this information.
Okay. Rami, do you have a quick comment on Kim's proposal with presenting slides from the last master plan?
No, that would be great. Kim, I don't know if we shared with you when you asked, we also have a kind of a spreadsheet that is a checklist of all the recommendations that were made in that plan and whether they have been carried out or partially carried out or not carried out. And then there are a lot we don't know the answer to. And we appreciate feedback from you folks and others. But I can share, I think I sent you, because Joseph, you recently asked for this as well. I sent
Yes.
you both of the documents. So I'd love to see your slides.
I would love to see your spreadsheet. That was going to be my next step.
Happy to show the spreadsheet with the whole committee, and happy to talk about ways to incorporate your slides into either one of the steering committee meetings or it's probably the right venue for starters. And then we can talk about whether or not it makes sense to incorporate that into a...
Yeah, I think a combination of the information would be best, because that's what I would be interested in. Okay, like, you've seen these slides, what have we done? So, yeah. And
So-
I can help try to figure out what some of those missing gaps are of what we've done.
I would love to review that during this committee, which brings me to my next question, is our Thursday timeframe is getting a little crowded, and I'm wondering if the committee at some point could, before next month, send me dates, days of the week that may work for you, so that we have other options to meet as a committee, so that we have more time to add to this. A presentation about the old master plan committee would be amazing. Being able to talk more in depth about the venue for the event coming up on May 30th and where to house the aerial map.
I'm assuming you want to meet here. Have you researched when here is available?
Yes,
Okay, so,
unconclusive.
all right.
It gets
I
a lot
went there-
easier in April.
I went there first, and who first come, first serve,
Oh, okay.
but
Do we have to have a physical meeting, or could it be all virtual? Or is there some law that says we have to be somewhere?
It can be
so easy to see slides.
It can be virtual.
You can share a screen.
Yeah, I said it would be much
If we can do it all
easier.
virtual, that's,
sure. I mean, does everybody?
option.
Yeah, it's an option, which is good. I always prefer in person,
I understand.
but if everybody has the capability to jump on virtual, that would be great to know that it's an option. Is everybody?
I'm good with whatever. I think Mr. Mayu and I can handle the virtual pieces of it pretty well.
Okay, is there any other quick committee comment?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
For a town meeting, if we're planning on, are we planning on presenting something? Are we planning on putting something into the warrant? Are we planning on having something just on the table? How are we planning to talk to the public? Because there are rules that we have to follow and possibly vote on right now.
From my understanding, it was just a simple table setup where people could approach with
Perfect.
QR codes.
That makes it very easy then. That requires no vote.
Yes.
I mean, or presentation might be good. I mean, there's gonna be nothing else going on at this town meeting.
Exactly. If we do want to do a presentation, though, we would have to put a warrant article forward to request to do a presentation, and that would require a vote like now.
I think that would really increase the people who we haven't been able to reach, because we have all the avenues that people have already used. I think seems like we might have exhausted them. So I think it would be a good option.
We could also kick it to special town meeting when it's a little quieter
That's also fair.
in the fall.
I think the fall town meeting would be a better time to do this.
I do too.
That also gives us a time to get through phase
And then
two,
we'll be-
where we would actually have recommendations, policies, suggestions.
So a table at this one,
Yes.
so that we don't trigger anything right now.
Correct.
That's what I had in mind, was a table with QR codes and somebody manning the table, able to answer questions if people approached.
Agreed.
Think so?
Fantastic.
Different topic.
Yep.
I've been thinking about it this a lot. My brain's a little bit in lock. I don't know what, it's been a tough week, and it's only, it is Thursday, that's good. As far as the arrive thing and getting the word out there, like, rather than maybe putting things in all the mailboxes or asking permission to do that, I don't know to what extent there are common areas over there, but that might be less intrusive. But common areas, like a table, on an existing table or whatever, having the surveys, or just a poster with a link to the thing you already have, the QRC, and not only would it be less intrusive, it may also be more impactful, because if people get them in the mail, they might just chuck them, but if it's in some kind of common area, they're going to pass it every day. So, just a thought.
Is there any other committee comment before we move on? Okay, we're going to move on to public comments. Do we have a public comment?
You guys look like an octet up here. 4 men, 4 women, do some songs and call it the Master Plan Group, and Lou would love that kind of music. It's his favorite. I'm Pete Lincoln, 46 Hemlock Drive, and I'm the chair of the 300th Anniversary Committee, and I was also on the 275th Committee. And the thing we're banging our heads up against, which you heard mentioned a couple times here, is we are charged with holding large public gatherings, and we're talking 2,000-3,000 people. There is no place since 2016 to do that. Since we used to have all our meetings in front of the old high school, we had bonfires, carnivals, fairs, we had casinos up there, music groups, but you can't do that anymore. So we need to find a place in town, and you need to plan this in your master plan, someplace where we can put 2,000 people with parking in this town on public ground. We have heard that this place was mentioned off Northfield Road, that wouldn't take a heck of a lot of developing to do, but as the town grows, we're going to need even more space of that sort. And that's the kind of thing I think that brings this town together more than any short meetings. We had the bonfire here in 2003, and there were 5,000 people in town together. And that's where this town gets together, not through smaller meetings. So I hope you can work it out somehow in this master plan to provide such a thing. And we're going to need to do something by our charge by 2028. So if you know any bulldozers, let us know. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a public comment? Okay. We will move on to adjournment, and I think we need to take a roll call on that, so let's start at the end of the table here.
We have to motion for it first.
Make a
right?
motion, I make a motion
Second.
There.
now.
Aye.
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 Not for me.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of the night.
Good night.